And I'm live. Alright. Gonna find myself. But while I'm doing so, I would like to tell you that I will be streaming again tomorrow from 4 to 5. Or 4 to 4:30, hopefully, because well, it kind of depends. However long it takes to go over the questions. For the mock test. So if you took that mock test, I graded 4th period so far, and things were shaky on a specific kind of problem. So we're going to take a peek at a few of those today, and I made sure that one of those types of questions shows up on the homework I put on AP Classroom. The mock test is hard, especially if you don't read the questions, unfortunately, for a lot of folks who didn't read the questions. So this is our opening salvo here. Let's see if this shows up nicely. Rats. It cuts it at the bottom. Alright, I shrink it. Hello, Drew, Michael, Aspen, Maddie, Caitlin, Matthew, Rose, Andre, Chelsea, Kelly, and Jack. Welcome, welcome, welcome. See some new faces in here, so welcome. Hopefully you're just new in participating. And your calc skills are mostly fresh. This is our opening question. This question is kind of... I believe we've looked at this one this year, but it's a good kind of question to remember how to do, because this is what a lot of people did wrong on the mock tests. Yeah, Jack, you missed the attendance thing. If you click on 4/23, April 23rd, you should find the attendance doc in the list, and then you just put in the date, and you should be fine. Yeah, let's see if you remember how to do this question, because I believe we have done this one. And this one's a little easier than the one on the test, because the one on the test gave an integral and a graph of f, whereas this one specifically tells you it's f prime, which is, I mean, seriously, in the 4th period, the class I graded, probably 3/4 of the people did not read that all the questions were asking about g, which is the integral of f, and answered every question for f, so they got like everything wrong. So if you're wondering why you got everything wrong for that question, which I can't tell you was the first question because I scrambled the question order. But yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, Daikun, I still haven't graded periods 1 and 3, because it takes me about an hour and a half to grade each class. So I have to summon the will to do something like that. And so I've done 1 so far. My plan is to have all of them done by tomorrow, because tomorrow from 4 to 5 I will be doing a mock test, like going over stream thing, where I go over that mock. Gotcha. Wait, what? Done. Wait, what? Done. Huh? Huh? Yeah, yes, Tycoon, I got your email. As I also got the other like 6 or 7 people who emailed me saying that they didn't finish and put their solutions in there. We didn't have any time constraints during the first test, and the scores were lower this test. So what I'm guessing is a lot of people who maybe do not have as fresh calculus skills took this one and It took longer than they expected, but the questions were designed to take 45 minutes, and I gave you 55 minutes, including upload. So, uh, yeah. Okay, so I'm not assigning another mock test. However, like that's timed or whatever. But my homework that I just posted is another mock test, and I'm only asking you to do 3 of the questions. So I had to assign the whole thing as a whole or search for the questions individually, which was a real pain in the butt. So I just assigned the thing as a whole. If you didn't attend the first mock test, there are some good questions on there to try out. And so you'll technically have like 6 questions. Or 5, I guess, since one of them's an area volume question, so you absolutely should not do that. But yes, the homework that I'm assigning is a mock test. Uh, so is it 50 total, including upload time? Oh, Chelsea said it was harder than last time. All right, all right. Yeah, I noticed everybody tried their best. I'm not diminishing anybody for not trying on that at all. People were doing a lot of work, and everything I noticed in fourth period was some pretty good stuff. So no hate, no hate. Yeah, it's interesting you guys thought that one was harder because I thought the hardest overall question was if you attended the first mock test, the last at bat and the snail problem was like crazy hard compared to anything on the last test. I thought everything on the last test was kind of like between a 5 and a 7 on the difficulty scale. So I can agree the first test had a lot of like 2 through 4 on the difficulty scale and then like one like 10 question. uh, but yeah, I think this one was consistently harder, but didn't have the peak of the previous mock tests. Uh, but yeah, I think we're up to 4 duns, so I'll wait for some non-sophomore duns as per normal. Uh, the sophomore speed demons came in first here. Yeah, based on my analysis there, I would guess that if you really know what you're doing, the second test was easier, and if you know a little less about what you're doing or don't know everything, then the first test would have been easier. So I think for most people, the first test would have been easier. Is there an attendance document for today? No, I decided to go with online homework, so I actually changed my mind. So let's make sure I didn't link an attendance document. And I changed my mind because I want people to practice the stuff that was in that mock test. I adapted when I saw the mock tests. So yeah, homework on AP Classroom. I've been done for 10 minutes. I started streaming 8 minutes ago, Josh. Don't be a hater. I assume you have done this question and had it or something? 80 years. Oh. Alright, Benjamin Aspen or Aspen Button, or I don't know what order you'd go there. Stuff's too easy for me in game. Oh yeah, a slight spoiler of the future, but this time next week, I'm just gonna um, install OBS on my desktop computer and play video games for an hour. Uh, so that's my AP test. Huzzah! Is that you don't need to even show up. But if you want to watch me play video games for a little bit, I'm gonna stream that for the memes. Uh, I decided that was gonna be funny. Nice. I said attendance wasn't mandatory, and we dropped 4 people right away. Hilarious. Yeah, probably Path of Exile, unless I'm sick of it again. I regained some interest because I re-rolled in hardcore SSF, so hoping on getting to some maps today. All right, let's begin this. So, yeah, we have a derivative graph here. So this is like one of the questions on the mock tests, except it's phrased a little differently, but it really doesn't actually impact the value or the process that much. Determine where we have a local minimum. Cool, that's where we go from negative to positive. Bam, local minimum. So, what is that? X equals 6. And it's a negative to positive in derivative graph. Determine the absolute minimum value on the interval. So for this, it's helpful to actually figure out the value at every easy point to figure out the value. So we know f of 8 is 4, so we know our value of our graph is 4 here. At this point, I would have gone up 7 and ended up at 4, so I would have a value of negative 3 in f. Then I was going down 3 from here to here, so if I go down 3 and end up at negative 3, that means I'm at 0 here. Next point where I should test, next 0 basically, or next spot where an area is cut off. I went up 6 and ended up at 0, so I was at negative 6. And last piece, I went up 2 from 0 to 1, so I started at negative 8. And now, from this, I can tell that negative 8's the smallest. So, dope. And so this is like the table that you'll often see in AP Solutions if you've been trying questions on your own. 0, negative 8, 1, negative 6, 4, comma 0, negative 3, wait, whoops, 6, comma negative 3. And 8, comma 4. And from this, these are all of our critical points, 1, 4, and 6, where we hit 0. So the absolute minimum is the smallest value. Can you go over that again, please? Okay. So if you didn't understand how I got all the values, the area under the curve is the change in f. So if I start at 4 at 8, notice how I'm talking about f, not f prime, so I don't actually care about any of the coordinates in this graph. All I care about is these areas. If the area is above the x-axis, then I went up from left to right. So from 6 to 8, I went up 7. And if I ended up at 4, then 4 minus 7 is where I started, which is why I got negative 3 for my value at 6. Then I went down 3 in between 4 and 6. So if I went down 3 and ended up at negative 3, that means I started at 0. And so that's my value at 4. Then I went up 6 between 1 and 4. So if I went up 6 and ended up at 0, that means I started at negative 6. And lastly, I went up 2, so I must have started at negative 8. So going from left to right, it's pretty easy to show. Negative 8, up 2. Negative 6, up 6. 0, down 3. Negative 3, up 7, end up at 4. The gamer stream is going to be Thursday at 1 p.m. Our AP test is Tuesday, so. I probably should not do it during. No, actually, I should not do it. I should do it later in the day if I do that because some people have like a push during that time or something, and so I shouldn't do that for something that doesn't matter like gaming. Uh, all right. Well, all I know is Darnell emailed me angry because I was streaming during his class for one of his students or something. So, trying not to step on toes there. All right. Next part. On what open intervals contained in 0 to 8 is the graph of f both concave down and increasing? Okay, so in a derivative graph, concave down is decreasing and increasing is positive. So I want where the graph is positive but decreasing. So that's from 0 to 1 here. That's from 3 to 4 here. And that's it. That's the only place where my graph is going down but has a positive value. And so I would say 0 to 1 and 3 to 4. Yes, this is the second to last stream before the test. Monday is the last stream before the test. All right. Then the last question says the function g is defined by g of x equals f of x cubed. So if I take the derivative of g, I get 3 times f of x squared times f prime of x. And we know all these things. If we're trying to find g prime of 3, the slope of the tangent line is g prime. Then all I do is find 3 times f of 3 squared, but they told us it's negative 5 halves. And f prime of 3 is 4. Chillin'. 3 times 25 over 4 times 4, so 75. That's a steep slope. What time Monday? Yeah, one like normal, yes. Do we do learning after the test? Yes, but I'm going to wait until after all AP testing's done to restart learning. Learning this year is area and volume questions because we skipped that unit, but you will need it for future math classes, even though it's not on this year's AP tests. So I am absolutely going to be doing area and volume and like a full unit, although it's in the book it's only like 2 sections of the book, so we're not doing that much. It'll be nice and slow paced and chill because that's all we have left. All right, that's that question. So let's move forward. If you missed last stream, you really should try out the demo. The other thing that they said for the AP tests, like reading their website and junk like that, is that you should show up 30 minutes early and make sure your code works and make sure you can log in and all that kind of crap. Because you don't want to, like some of you were on the mock tests, showing up 5 minutes late, having some issues getting in, figuring out logistics, and then running out of time on questions. Like, that is absolutely the last thing you want to have affecting your score, is having time issues because of technical issues. Oh, and yeah, they will email you the code on Sunday, because your test is Tuesday. Oh, last thing, before I forget, since Dhruv is in chat, Dhruv, your pictures are like ultra low resolution. Before the AP test, you should figure out how to up your resolution a little bit, because I can barely read them, and I'm not sure the AP graders are going to be as forgiving. Oh yeah, look, I even had a slide for the check-in 30 minutes before. Yeah, and notice I talked about this last stream, but if you have technical problems during your exam, so like if your computer crashes or your internet fails, you can do the makeup exam. So it's no problem if this craps out on you. I mean, you really want to get it right the first time, but if it craps out on you, you can take it again. I'm reasonably sure you can turn it to PDF. They accept like almost all file formats, Josh. And I've had no issues reading like almost anybody's work, uh, with the exception of Drew's, which have been fairly low resolution, and that's the only issue. Uh, all right. I have another question for you here with a coffee and a coffee maker. So let's try this dude out. Is grading gonna be faster? Oh, my guess is no. Because free response are what take a while to grade anyways. I don't know. I guess it's half the grading load, but they're probably going to have a harder time. They're probably not going to be able to get teachers out there to volunteer to grade like they usually do. Oh, man. Liam, I have no clue. There's not enough information on that. It's possible they'll be slower, it's possible they'll be faster, it's possible probable, maybe even. Most likely it'll be exactly the same. I don't know. And Josh, if you really want to test that, you can use their demo and then just see if you can upload a PDF. I'm reasonably sure I was able to upload something. I uploaded a Word file or something like that. What is in my Documents on my computer? Recommendation letters, PDFs. No, I uploaded a PDF. I think I uploaded my Puget Sound Energy bill. And it worked. So, but yeah, you can test. My PSE bills are really depressing too because I have electric heat, like an electric furnace. So they're like $300, and you're telling me I'm a glutton compared to my neighbors for power. Feels bad. You'd think that, Jack, but during the summer, even though my brother and I are on our computers like almost all day, uh, my power bill is way below my neighbors. Partially, probably because I don't have AC, and some of my neighbors run air conditioners, and we don't run them at all because my house is built into a hill, so it's pretty cool in here all the time. Which is like a really dope thing about this house and why I like living here. But yeah. So this question is kind of another pretty consistent type of question that shows up on AP tests. So it's a pretty likely one because it's a lot of interpreting. So it's something that's hard to plug into NSolve. And it's kind of what I'm trying to focus on today with the questions I'm assigning. Like a hobbit hole. A hobbit hole would be better than my house. Uh, but yes, it has some of the similar characteristics. I would love to live in a hobbit hole. That'd be dope. Maybe I wouldn't even have cell service. That would make it better. Ah! Dropped my pen. Oopsies. Particularly questions like 3B here are questions that people are really unsatisfactorily answering on AP exams. Something I'm going to go over tomorrow. Um, if you showed up to the mock test, there was a question on there that said, does the point ever go through its starting position again? And very, very few people actually figured out where the point was at the beginning of the interval and where it was at the end of the interval. If you did that, all you had to say was it went to all the points in between. But like no one did that, even though that's how you do that question. So, uh, if you remember that question, I will be going over that on Friday from 4 to 5. But yeah, that was a thing. We're 2 duns in. No, Liam, I have not graded them all. I've graded 4th period only so far. It's about 5 or 6 hours of total grading. So, I will get them done when I can. Yeah, and can I call out one of my nemesis on these homeworks? I don't see Dylon here this time. But yeah. The people who upload individual pictures for A, B, C, and D, those people take a long time to grade. Whew. And Dylan is famous for that, in my estimation. Yeah, I honestly don't know, Drew, because you're the only person submitting really low quality photos. Like when I put them in photos or whatever, like when I download them from AP, they're like little tiny pictures. So my guess is your phone resolution on your phone is like really low. So it allows you to keep more pictures on your phone, but they're like unreadable. Huh? And yeah, scanning works pretty well. Chelsea, based on the questions they've released so far, okay, it might be A, B, C, and D. All each have different at bats. We don't know for sure yet. But the way the page is oriented, it looks like it could be one for all of A, B, C, and D. I wish I knew more. I looked at the AP streams, because they did some like mock testy things, and their mock tests were almost exactly the same as mine. So cool. They were like 3 free response questions from past exams. But anyways, if you want to watch people do some questions, check the AP channel right now, the AP Calculus channel. They go over like several AP free response questions. So that's a good resource. And they talk about how they grade it and stuff, and it's like the AP people. So I can put links to that on my calendar if people are interested. But when I email pictures to myself, I choose the small size option so it sends faster. Oh, yeah. So just choose a bigger size option, like medium, and it'll probably be legible. Anyways, yeah, let me know if you're interested in links to those. Otherwise, you can just Google them. They're on YouTube. They were in my recommended videos because I do this. But yeah, those are they go over some questions that I've actually already gone over and some other questions. But yeah. All right. Let's start with this since a fair amount of done snuck in here. If you haven't finished, you can go ahead and pause me or whatever, and that's fine. So it says use the data in the table to estimate c prime of 3.5. This is a good old y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Chillin'. 1.6, and that's in ounces per minute. Man, I don't even remember the shorthand for ounces. Like OU? O? OZ? OZ. Alright, and then, yeah, that's it. Cool, 1.6 ounces per minute. Chillin'. Is there a time during between 2 and 4 for which C prime equals 2. So we have C and we're asked for C prime. This means we're using the mean value theorem for derivatives, which means I should do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's 12.8 minus 8.8 over 4 minus 2, which is 4 over 2, which means, heck yes, the mean value theorem. So where does it mention it's differentiable? Dope. C is differentiable. Differentiable. So MVT says 2 must equal the instantaneous slope. The average slope must equal the instantaneous slope. Must equal instantaneous slope at one value, at least one value of t. So something like that as an answer. So notice how there are three really important things to put in here. You can't just say MVT. You can't just say 12.8 minus 8.8 over 2 is 2, so MVT. That's not going to get you all the points. You have to mention C is differentiable, which it is because it says so in the question. You have to say MVT says that the average slope 2 must equal the instantaneous slope at a point. So a lot of people are not answering mean value theorems like appropriately with enough detail. Those are the things you need. Differentiable, average slope equals instantaneous slope, then mean value theorem shows that it must happen. All right. Next one says use a midpoint sum and three subintervals of equal length to estimate the average value of the coffee ounces, the hot water ounces, whatever this is. So we're going to have to, at the end, explain the meaning in the context of the problem. But let's first find the value. So first, if there are three equal intervals, it's 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6. The midpoints are at 1, 3, and 5. So I'm just using those y values for my midpoint sums. And each of the rectangles is 2 wide, and we just add all that crap together. We divide by 6. And like I could even just leave it like this on the AP test. Well, not if you're given a calculator. Usually they make you go farther. Let's go a little farther. 10.6 plus 22.4 plus 17.6. That's 3350.6 over 6. And then this is in ounces, because what 1/6 of this is the average amount, or sorry, it's in ounces per minute. It's the average flow of the, no, I'm goofing. It's in ounces. It's the average value of the amount of ounces in the coffee that is dripping through the coffee filter here, or the amount of coffee in the cup. Yeah, it's the average amount of coffee in the cup. I should read the question. Amount of coffee in the cup in ounces from t equals 0 to t equals 6. And I know these are always graded the same way. They give you points for doing this, and they give you a point for giving this explanation. So getting that explanation is really an important idea and can get you a lot of free points. Yeah, okay, so if I were to find trapezoids with these same intervals, Liam, just to show an example, because people were explaining that right. you'd pick the average between the beginning and ending y values, in this case 4.4, between these 10.8, and between these, that one's harder, 27.3 divided by 2, so 13.15. Did I goof that? Yeah, I definitely goofed that. Feels bad. 13.65. Isn't it 27.6 instead of 17? Oh my gosh. So that actually divides nicely. 10.1. So 10.1 ounces is the average amount of coffee in the coffee cup from 0 to 6, based on this approximation. Which, based on the values, seems like a kind of crappy approximation. Oh well. Thank you for that correction. All right. The last part says the amount of coffee in the cup in ounces is modeled by that equation. Using this model, find the rate at which the amount of coffee in the cup is changing when t equals 5. Okay, so this is an amount in the cup, so the B is like C. But if we take the derivative of B, we get negative 16 e to the negative 0.4 t, the derivative of 16 is 0, times negative 0.4. Because for e, all we do is rewrite in chain rule. And so all we have to do is plug 5 into this. And so we get 0.4 times 16. That's like 6.4. 4 times 16 divided by 10. Times e to the negative 2. And you just figure out what this value is. And yeah, we're super chilling. That's that question. 6.4 over e squared, that's like 0.8 or something. But that's an exact answer, so you actually could just answer this in ounces per minute. Any other questions besides the why can't you multiply 13.8 correctly? By 2. Chillin'? And our last one is hard like the one that was on the mock tests. So if you didn't attend the mock test and you're wondering what everybody is consternated about or whatever, this question is very similar. But asks fairly different things. The setup is very similar, but kind of runs you through some different tricks. Oh, did I cut the graph off? I will fix it. Now it fits nicely in the part of the screen I'm capturing. Dope. So yeah, this question requires you to definitely read and acknowledge that G and F are not the same thing. So if you struggled with the last mock test, give this another try and see if you can answer it for G. I just realized I probably can't stream that many games because my 16 gigs of RAM died, so I had to put my 8 gigs back in. I'm still waiting for a good deal on 32 gigs to jump on. But that limits that. 8 gigs is so few and so limiting. It's pretty sad, Panda. Yeah, no good deals today on RAM. Feels bad. I just realized I can call some people out for funsies. Oh, no offenders here. How are people doing on this so far? When chat goes quiet, I assume people are writing, which is good. Oh, I did not even realize there was an optional student practice tab. This is probably where they put the mock exams. So Chelsea has discovered this, but not a ton of other people have. And Dhruv has discovered this. Andrew. Oh yeah, if you want more optional practice, apparently optional student practice is a thing. And yeah. Curious. Oh yeah, it's just random FRQ questions. Cool. I now that I know those exist, because I didn't even know what that tab was, because I don't think it existed before like a month ago. Maybe it did. But yeah, I can take a peek at those potentially this weekend, since this is really the last huzzah for me having to work my butt off before, because like after the AP tests, I'm chilling. You guys basically enter the Algebra 1 schedule. You guys lose the Wednesday streaming slot. I'm giving it to Algebra 1 because we don't need 3 streams a week for calculus after the AP tests. We're just going to go to 2 a week. And it'll kind of feel like somewhat normal class, which is exciting. That's good. I don't like Wednesdays. All right. All right. I think I'm going to start mobbing this. The first question says find g of -3. That means I'm trying to find... so g of -3 is 2 times -3 plus the integral from 0 to -3 of f of t dt. So this is a little tricky. Now, what it does tell me is that these are quarter circles. And this is something like nobody did on the mock tests. Like, I would say 1 in 4 people did on the mock tests. Nobody actually found the area of these quarter circles. So this is a quarter of a circle, and pi 3 squared, because the radius is 3. And this is 1/4 of pi 1 squared. So this is 9 pi over 4, and this is pi over 4. Okay, now that we know these, what we know is that the integral from 0 to -3 is the negative integral from -3 to 0, which is probably an easier way to think about this. And the integral from -3 to 0 is 9 pi over 4 minus pi over 4. And 9 pi over 4 minus pi over 4 is 8 pi over 4, or just 2 pi. So this is -6 minus 2 pi. Okay, that's g of -3. Now we have to find g prime of x and evaluate g prime of -3. So g prime of x is 2 for the derivative of 2x. That part's easy. And then the second fundamental theorem of calculus tells us that the derivative of the integral from 0 to x of f of t dt is just f of x. You just plug in the x. And we would have to chain rule if this was like 2x up here. But since it's just normal x, no chain rule, chillin'. Okay, now that we have this, we just plug in -3, and we get 2 plus f of -3. F of -3 is a big fat 0. So, good to go. That's 2. Cool. A down. That was a heavy A. A is often an easy question. Here it was not an easy question. All right. For B, determine the x-coordinate of the point at which G has an absolute maximum. So for this, what I should do is make a little table here and test all of the values where I have critical points or endpoints. So -4, -3, crud muffins, like 1.5 and 3. Why is it -2 pi and not plus 2 pi? Specifically because it's the integral from 0 to -3. And I flipped it to be going in like order from smallest to biggest, which is how integrals normally are. And that's why I got a negative integral. And then what I ended up subtracting was, the integral from -3 to 0 is actually a positive 2 pi, 9 pi over 4 minus pi over 4. So it is important that you actually orient your bounds correctly before you start evaluating, because if you try to go backwards, it's like mind-blowing of an experience, and you can get turned around really quickly. What is the range of acceptable answers for g of -3? Also, shouldn't it be 6 minus 9 pi over -6? No. Oh, crap. So we got to go back and talk more about that. Oh, actually, poopy fart nuggets. Okay, so I messed up there. So yeah, Chelsea's right. Gosh darn it. So it's the integral from 0 to -3. So we actually don't care about this part for the purposes of that first question, which means all I cared about was this, and it should be minus 9 pi over 4. Gosh darn it. Thanks, Chelsea. Good catch. Oopsie daisies. Where did the pi over 4 come from? Pi over 4 is the area of this little thing, which is going to matter for my absolute min and max, which I'm in the process of calculating here, but did not matter for part A, where I found g of -3. So I apologize about that. That was a goof. This part wasn't relevant. All that mattered was this 9 pi over 4 guy, because we were going back that positive area, so we started at a lower value, which is why this is negative. All right. Moving forward. So I know this value here. What do I know? Okay, so I know g is -6 at 0. Wait, no, it's 0 at 0. Yikers. Yeah, I gotta plug everything into this equation. This equation's horrendous. All right, g of 0 is 0 plus the integral of 0 to 0. So that's, I don't even care what's in here. G of 0 would be 0. So we're actually starting at 0 here, which makes a lot of our math a lot easier. G of 3 is 6 plus the integral from, and I should clear out all this crap here. Woo, my answer is right now. Nice. So, g of 3 is 6 plus the integral from 0 to 3 of f of t dt. So g of 3 is, well, the integral from 0 to 3, this area and this area exactly kill each other. So it's just 6. Chilling. All right, g of 1.5 is 2 times 1.5, which is 3, plus the integral from 0 to 1.5 of f of t dt. So now I actually have to figure out the area of the triangle. 3 times 1.5 over 2 is 4.5 over 2, which is 2.25. So this is 5.25. Okay. G of -3, we figured out in the first question. It was -6 minus 9 pi over 4. That's omega trash for figuring out the maximum. Like, that is a very unlikely point there. And lastly, -4 would be 2 times -4 plus the integral from 0 to -4 of f of t dt. And if we do this, we get -8 and then minus 2 pi, because I think that's what I had errantly first answered, was the integral from 0 to -4. Which means it's definitely not these guys. And so 3 is actually our absolute maximum. Notice how much more work it is to answer these questions for g compared to f. It takes a lot of analysis. I had to do the integrals, find the areas underneath, for each of these calculations for g. Now, next part says, find all the values of x on the interval -4 to 3, for which g has a point of inflection. Give a reason for your answer. Okay. So the point of inflection for g is a little hairy, because f isn't purely a derivative graph. So we have to do a little bit of analysis to figure out how we're going to do this. Now, in A, I figured out g prime of x was 2 plus f of x. And if I take a second derivative, g double prime of x would just be equal f prime of x. So I can actually just use the derivative of f, so the slope of the f graph, to determine where I have a point of inflection. So what I'm going to look for is a change in the slope. When my slope changes from positive to negative, that is the sign of an inflection point in g. Which means, hopefully I didn't need any of that stuff. which means where does my slope change from positive to negative? Just right here. So that is at x equals 0. And so my give a reason for the answer was taking that second derivative, figuring out that the second derivative of g was exactly the derivative of f, and figuring out that f only changes sign once. And that was at x equals 0. Again, fairly tricky. All right, D, thankfully, is just talking about f. So D says find the average rate of change of f on the interval, -4 to 3. Okay, so that's just literally bang that slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is -2 over 7. And it says there is no point in which -2/7 is the slope of my graph. And if I look at this, that's true. This is always positive slope. This is a negative, what is that slope? -2 slope? So those never equal -2/7. And the reason why this doesn't contradict the mean value theorem is because this graph, and therefore basically, okay, f is not differentiable because f has a cusp. So x equals 0 is a cusp. So f is not differentiable. So no MBT. And that's all you had to say for that one. So I actually thought D was the easiest of these at bats. Let's check out Drew's reasoning here. My reasoning was f prime equals 0. Would that work? No. Because you could also have a 0 slope that looks like this. And that's not a point of inflection. So 0 slope is not quite good enough. The really important part is that it switches from positive slope to negative slope. Like in this case, it would switch from positive to negative and would absolutely be good enough. Oh, people are off to their timed Buckley quiz. Do I have any last second announcements? I talked about most of this stuff already. Make sure you read the question. That's why we focused on a little derivative graph stuff today. And then, really important, I'm going to put this on my homework calendar, but please only do questions 3, 5, and 6 from the assigned tests that I put online on AP Classroom. Please only do 3, 5, and 6. I'm going to update my homework calendar right now. So, only do 3, 5, and 6. Only 3, 5, and 6 are assessed. And I don't know if I'm going to get through grading all of those. I'm going to try to get through all your mock tests, but these I cannot guarantee that I will get these graded. So I apologize. I understand many of you have to leave. Are there any questions from our people sticking around? Anything I can help you with on any of the problems we did today? If I went too fast on anything, I'm happy to look at anything. Otherwise, I can bid you adieu. And I also, if you missed it on that last page, like didn't read it, I recommend doing a Barron's mock test or just taking advantage of any resources using the optional practice on AP Classroom, just anything you can do to go above and beyond, because this is crunch time. This is like, there's never been a more important time to practice calculus than like the next 4 or 5 days. So, is there a late policy for homework? I always accept late homework, so yeah. It helps if you remind me that you have late, and it's a little hard because we're in this online classroom garbage, and so you will have to remind me. But yeah, That's what's up. So please, please, please practice every day going up to that AP test. Make sure you're as fresh as possible so you can mob those questions and get the best score that you can possibly get. And yeah, if you're here next week, I'll probably stream at like 4. You can watch me get mad at video games or something. All right. Bye bye.